New Zealand cash flows, which is a pretty common approach for New Zealand software businesses. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, excellent. Would anybody else, before we break into groups, is we'll talk about your reaction to the presentation.
What we would do is invite you in and make a formal introduction. And what we like about this concept is nobody likes the hard sell. So it allows you to sort of wet your whistle, get an idea, hey, I can see something happening, go away, think of some questions. We can help make that formal introduction, but it's not a scary thing. We can actually help with the facilitation if there are questions you don't feel comfortable asking around price or certain arrangements, we can help with that. But the idea is to make those initial introductions and then help work with you to help cement those.
And that will probably be it.
So our key is we wanted to turn this into a Q&A session. We hate it when people talk to you rather than sort of with you. So what we'd like to do is if you guys have got specific questions, even if you want to get an inkling of whether you would be a suitable company, we encourage you to ask us now.
To Auckland City Council, I would like to know what the reason is for having the Gold Coast for matching up with Auckland.
Okay.
The reason, the background for this question is that Auckland City has a
sister city with Brisbane. Yep.
Which is very close.
Yep.
So
and in fact, that's how it started. And I think it was Agatavi were doing a project with the Brisbane and Gold Coast City Council.
So basically it's a collaboration between the Software Institute for Software Innovation and Entrepreneurship and Gold Coast, because we are collaborating with Gold Coast City Council. So that's how it started, and that's the project is coming from, like you saw the pilot project for US and Gold Coast. So that's where the idea came from, and that is the starting point. But if there are going to be any other Australian companies outside of Gold City, it doesn't mean that they're going to be restricted to it.
From my point, I got approached by Gold Coast City Council. They'd done a pilot and it was successful, and New Zealand was the next obvious market. They already had the companies or a range of quality companies that have been put together, because you do have to weed out some companies that aren't necessarily going to be appropriate. We don't want to just be pushing Me Too companies into a market where there are other Me Too companies. We want to make genuine long-term relationships that are going to work, not quick hit sales. So it's not about the shotgun approach, it's about genuine long-term relationships, which is where basically the work we're going to do to help cement that long-term stuff is going to happen. But you're right, this is a model we do intend to potentially, if it works well, roll out amongst other councils.
So with that, I would see starting with Gold Coast, not finishing. So Brisbane might not be the next step, hopefully close to, but also
Well, we
in place to actually be able to follow up with that stuff one-on-one. So when somebody puts their hand up, we want to then move as quickly as possible to that bulk model to one-on-one type of stuff. But I think it is a really key point that really have a think about that 5-minute presentation, what you can sum up in a 5-minute presentation that's not a sales pitch about the product, it's about the value proposition for you as an actual business. And I'm happy to recommend some really good videos, say on the internet, where I've seen some really slick presentations.
Yeah, that says that Australia is one of the biggest markets.
Yep. Yep. I've worked very closely with Brian.
Yes. I am very enthusiastic about it.
Yep.
And very excited.
Yep, no, definitely, and I think Brian would be quite a good candidate for the actual project.
Definitely.
And I think that's a good example. I think if you take SenseTech, I think, and Simon probably knows a little bit more. When I met Brian, they weren't making sales in Australia, and now it accounts for a decent percentage of their revenue.
It's about 70%.
70%. So say in the space of 2.5 years, and I believe they've sort of tried to tackle UK. They've got much better momentum in Australia because it's cheaper, easier, and I mean that's a great sort of example where, you know, from nothing to 70% in 2.5 years. I think you just got to work that little bit harder in New Zealand for the money. So don't underestimate in Australia. You've got slightly bigger businesses, so the value proposition's a little bit better. They've got slightly more money. you know. but I mean, don't forget, we're also seeing you guys, where the real value in the immediate future is you guys have got really strong relationships with some of your core customers. Now, if you see something or an Australian company you think, that is really going to actually fill a need that they have, how much easier is it for you to make that sale and upsell to a customer where you've already got, you know, relationships, the payment, you've got all of those issues ironed out? It's a lot easier than if you were to say, try and go out and create a whole new customer and start everything from scratch.
And I think too, the pitch needs to be specific to what you want to do and what you're offering in Australia.
Yeah.
So you might have something similar but different for UK, US.
Yeah.
But it's more that by doing this now for Australia, Gold Coast and upwards Australia, you'll get into the swing of it, understand how to make the most of this new path to market, and then see how to adapt that for other markets too.
And I think as well, people that might be viewed as a competitor, should they be in your own market, are not necessarily competitors overseas, especially if you've got a suite of products where there might be some that are competitive and others aren't, and they might not necessarily take on all of your products, and you might not necessarily want to take on all of theirs. But you think about how much of a strength position it gives you if you're, say, a medium-sized player that might only have 80% of the capabilities of some of your competitors in New Zealand, and you have a really strong, well-established company that's got case studies with large Australian entities. Because let's face it, it's about getting that first customer. And so if you've got really strong case studies and a really strong support team behind you, you can just concentrate on making sales, and all of the actual hassles will partly be taken out.
And also, with the new website, you'll be far better able to promote your company. But Ian will talk to you about that. Is that the end of your...
So
does that
that's
conclude?
effectively the end of the presentation. And what I would encourage you is have a bit of think about how you could sum up your real value proposition in 5 minutes or so. Have a talk to me. What we're wanting to do is we'll put something up formal to get those expressions of interest and so on. But what we really want to make sure is we really do this properly from the get-go. You do something well, you get some good successes, it's easy to roll out. You do it poorly to start with, then it's very hard to do it a second time. So we want to do this right the first time.
Well, thank you both so much for a great presentation. And this really is very exciting, and we look forward to making this a huge success. And Jim Frankham is going to say a few words and give you a bottle of wine.
I just want to say thank you very much. Who do I give it to first?
Ladies.
The lady.